You're listening to Data Center Therapy. Please take a number, and an engineer will be right with you.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Data Center Therapy, a podcast from IVOXY Consulting that talks all things IT with a healthy dose of empathy. I'm your host, Matt, shipping container. I barely knew her, Yette, and alongside me is my co-host, Matt Cozzolino.
Where's my package? I'm lost.
Yeah. Well, each episode of DCT, we dive into the wide range of technologies that make up this beautiful sandbox called IT that we all play in. We share our hopes and dreams, opinions both positive and critical alike, all with a touch of empathy. Because at the end of the day, we all need to sit on that couch. Now, it's been awesome to take a little bit of a breather, to be honest with you, from this thing we call work. But I got to be honest, like, I'm not doing any less work. Mr. Coz, thank you so much for graciously and with aplomb hosting the pod for the last two episodes.
Absolutely. It's been a heck of a ride.
It was fun to produce it, and I heard some of it didn't make the final cut. I left it on the editing room floor, but some choice comments for me over some of those recordings, too. Just, I can't wait for Yette to produce this. So, yeah, I was out on paternity leave. I had my first daughter a month ago, tomorrow. So she'll be a month old tomorrow. And so you guys slipped a couple eps in. Good work. Yes. And so now I'm back gracing the airwaves, so hopefully we can kind of slide right back in. But that's not the biggest news here at all. At all.
It isn't.
This is what, episode 70? 70 of these. 70 of these. And we've tried, maybe not 70 times, but close to it, tried that many times to get a guest on this episode. And we finally have wrangled him. And I'm super excited to announce our founder, Captain, my captain, Mr. Eric Watson. Eric, hello.
Hello.
Yeah, so tell us, obviously, Eric and Alec own IVOXY Consulting. We've had Alec on a couple of times. We've had Eric lined up, but things happen when, you're the owner of the company. So
life happens, everything.
It's been tough. Yeah, so we finally got him. We've got limited time, so we're going to try to get through this. We got a couple things to talk about. But first, Eric, if you wouldn't mind, bring out that vanity plate and tell us all about yourself.
Gosh, I'm happy to be here, and I'm so happy that you guys we have 70 episodes now. That's absolutely fantastic. I'm normally the guy behind the scenes, the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain that who wants to make sure that we have a pleasant environment for everybody to enjoy working in IVOXY, and more importantly, that our customers are super happy with all the things that we deliver to them. So I'm proud to be as part of this podcast. And you've asked once or twice, but it certainly wasn't 70 times.
It was not 70 times. No, but I got to say, this is not the suck up the brownos. I promise. I would say this before. I would say this without you on here. Is at IVOXY, Matt would agree with me that we always feel defended and protected and supported by our leadership at the company, and that's why in a career for me that spans over 20 years now, almost half of that, 8.5 years, has been with IVOXY, and I hope that's at least that much more in the future too.
In IT, there's a reason I've been here for a decade, so thank you. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. With everything that changes in this industry, IVOXY's, as much as we've adapted with things, the constant is they support the consultants and the engineers, which we love. So thank you, Mr. Watson.
Oh, you bet.
Yes. So we wanted to talk about something that behind the scenes you're probably working on or feeling the pressure on more than most nowadays. And it's something that's affecting us all, and yet at the same time we all feel so very helpless about it all. And that's the supply chain crisis that we're dealing with right now. You want to maybe go into how we're positioned, Eric, with procuring product? Where does IVOXY stand in the supply chain when it comes to what our customers expect or can expect from us?
I think what's more important is thanks for asking. What's more important is how this affects our customers,
right?
Because we're all affected by this global supply chain issue, which is a secondary effect of the pandemic. From China to the way that shipping is happening in the United States, supply chain is affecting how we can get, rubber duckies, how we can get silicon wafers. It's across the board. It's going to be an interesting Christmas for us. But what we're seeing is normally when customers order equipment from us, we go to distribution, we place the order, and then sometimes it gets manufactured, sometimes it's in some warehouse somewhere, and then it'll get transported to the customer's loading dock. We go in and do the install, and everybody's happy. Now, with these global supply chain problems, the logistics, the global logistics, are, to put it nicely, they're all messed up. And so distribution is giving us warnings, but they don't even have good estimates as to how long it's going to take to manufacture things. So the message, the reason for this particular episode of Eric Going On the podcast is to tell all of our customers and listeners that if you have to order some hardware, then plan way ahead and be wary of estimates from anyone, IVOXY or other providers of computer equipment, because the global supply chain mess is just something that we're all subject to.
Yeah, it's and being part of the tech, arena industry and following blogs and this and that. One of the things that and I've been an Apple product user, not a fanboy. I've used them all. I've written programs for them all, but I've settled on Mac OS as my work platform. And so, of course, Steve Jobs is a visionary. Whatever you want to say about him personally, he was one of the most momentous figures in IT history. And now Tim Cook running Apple, one of his big claim to fame was supply chain logistic genius extraordinaire. And to that end, Apple has been seemingly almost unaffected by this, just from outward. Now they're signaling on their investment calls that they're having some challenges, but they don't seem to be struggling so much with that. But it seems like a lot of the supply chain for a lot of these companies have switched to a just-in-time. I mean, we don't have, like you said, you don't have inventory sitting on shelves. That doesn't make anybody money. That just costs a whole lot of people a lot of money having outstanding cold inventory. So we've gone to this more nimble supply chain, and that works great until pandemic restrictions and then the demand that goes with it, right?
Everyone's switching to that or switched to that just in time, right?
Yeah.
Airplane manufacturing, everything.
So you've got that flow, great, and then all of a sudden demand goes, you know what, I'm going to hit the pause button. Like a lot of our customers did hit the pause. Some of them accelerated, but some of them took the uncertainty, right, Eric?
Yeah, there was a gigantic shift when COVID happened. The hospitality industry shut down, but some of our customers were doing research for the vaccine, and so spending increased. Some government agencies, as things progressed through this, their spending picked up, but it was a shift.
Yeah, and I mean, I think
surge in some areas and
overall globally, I think, like we saw the economy and employment numbers just drop.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so what I believe, you saw it happen where all of these factories also probably said, well, you know what, shut it down for either business reasons or COVID restriction reasons. And then when the faucet finally gets turned on, everybody wants to drink from it all at once. So you've got depleted inventory already, so the just-in-time is really strained, and now you've got ramp-up time. It's not like tomorrow things are back up and running full bore either. It's like, think about programming, your productivity is bouncing along, and then manager wants to call the meeting. It takes a dive. You start at another meeting in an hour, takes a dive. So that ramp-up had to happen, and now you've got everybody clamoring for product. And technology advancing where more things need chips. I mean, we heard about the cars last year, right? And that the used car market, I've got one in my garage if anybody wants a car that I can now sell for 3 times as much, by the way. But like the used car market's huge because nobody can get a new car because all of them have these, processors
chips and
in them.
ICs, and they think for you, lane assist,
I don't want anything thinking for me because sometimes I think I'm pretty dumb, but no one's as dumb as the voice assistants in all of this. Like, I'm still talking to my wife, and I hear my speaker go, yeah. Okay.
I've had Zoom calls pick up the Google before.
You mean it triggers Google?
Yeah, because it sits right in front of my speaker, so
pops up.
That's always a great one.
Okay, side note, Eric, do you have a smart assistant in your home?
Not in my home, but I do on my phone. So
Yeah, We all do. It just happens to live in our pocket, right? Yeah.
Sounds like a true Android user, Mr. Cozzolino.
Big brother.
You know what? Yours are the same. They do the same thing.
Everybody's listening.
Yep. They are.
Eric, you touched on planning ahead. I think that really is as strong as it's ever been. It's always been part of our workflow in that we have conversations with customers, and very often it's the customer also saying, look, I've got this coming up in the next year, the next 3 years, the next 5 years, my plan. And I think while everybody has to have that conceptually, it almost feels like the next 6 months to a year you have to have mapped pretty firmly, because if you want something to happen in the next year, you almost have to act now. Not picking on any specific vendor partners of ours, but I mean, we see lead times of 200-300 days sometimes on some equipment. It's hard to fathom, but it's just, and there's nothing we can do about it. I wish there was, but like Eric said, we don't hold inventory, that way.
And neither do the majority of our competitors either. So it's a just-in-time environment,
right?
Like you said,
right. I mean, costs are kept low that way. If we had a deal with warehouse and security and insurance and inventory, that's a huge float too. So. Yeah, and you were saying something when we were talking previously, Eric, about interest rates have stayed low too. So it kind of begets a goose to the economy as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, with low interest rates, the decision making of these organizations, these companies to purchase equipment is still high, right? So if I can buy something and finance it today, then gosh darn, I'm gonna, because interest rates are unfathomably low, and the Fed is holding that to keep the economy going.
Mm-hmm. So, do you see us getting more purchases, more orders coming in because of that, or is that?
That's what we've seen in 2021. Significant amount of increased spending throughout 2021, even though it feels like the economy's soft, the economy's roaring because of low interest rates. When the Fed raises interest rates, hopefully spending will continue. But
how does that affect us? Because
how does that affect the customers, or how does that affect IVOXY?
I guess both. If I decide to buy something now in the end of the year, can I keep that same interest rate? Can I keep that same price, even though it's going to be 6 months, 12 months before I get my product? Like, how's that translate? I need to put the order in now to lock that price in. I decided to buy my house, so I locked my interest rate in. Is that kind of the?
Well, it's the same idea as if you purchase a home with a variable interest rate or a fixed interest rate. If you were to purchase equipment, most equipment leases or financing vehicles are fixed interest rates. So buy equipment now. Because a year from now, I don't think you're going to be able to see the same rates.
Yeah,
so that's a good point. And you just went through a refinance, right, Coz? You're going through it right now.
Yep.
I went through one a year ago this time, and now it almost makes sense to do it again, but which I can't believe, but I don't think I'll be doing that. But yeah, I mean, in terms of that, it's usually a large capital purchase that requires financing too. Certain customers just buy it outright, right, Eric? They don't necessarily finance, or if they do, it might not involve us. They just might do that on their side of things.
Correct.
I guess that's kind of a question of being the engineer, being the one that doesn't deal with money. Usually, I'll just throw stuff I'll throw the right product, the right solution at my account manager, and he deals with all of the money stuff, right? I'm under the impression we don't bill for hardware until it lands on your doorstep or until it ships or something like that. So that's kind of my question: is if it takes 6 months to ship, does that change what their financing is going to happen, or do they start paying if someone's going to finance something?
Oh, I see.
Now?
Yeah, that's a good question. So when a customer orders something, their invoice is sent when the equipment arrives.
Okay.
So if we have logistics that it's en route and it's going to take, say, 2 days to ship from Georgia to some place in Olympia, then we could potentially invoice a day ahead. But the invoicing is for us is based on when it's going to arrive. So if a customer orders something today, because actually we've seen some things with lead times of, like 3-4 months. So we've got POs in hand, and we won't be able to invoice some of them until, say, March.
another challenge that they were talking about and thinking was in episode 63 we had Doug Abbott, who is Cisco's lead security investigator for the supply chain, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that is really kind of like pick that up and apply that filter to this episode, because with the supply, let's say you're waiting 200 days for a pair of switches, a very potential realistic scenario.
What can I get sooner?
Right. And hey, I've got this Cisco. Yeah, it's in an alley. Yeah, it's out of my trunk. But I promise, wink, wink, it really is a Cisco switch.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say someone goes for that. We already talked about the concerns with product integrity, supportability. Cisco is going to say, no, that's an illegal product. It's that, if that turns out to be the case. But I think, those are massive things. Those are deal breakers, of course. Biggest thing for me right now, above all, is security.
Absolutely.
I mean, there is absolutely no limit to the amount of avenues that malicious hackers are trying to get into your network to ransom your data. And if you buy a Cisco switch out of a trunk, and I'm just picking on Cisco, this could be anybody. You buy a Cisco switch, and let's say it works, great. But who's to say there's not a back door in there that now there's somebody in your network? I mean, that's what worries me about counterfeit equipment more than the supportability. Supportability is important, right? Legitimacy is important, but I think the security aspect scares me the most.
You don't know where it's been. We don't have a chain of custody of this piece of equipment.
Mm-hmm.
Right, but and that's to say is if something's too good to be true, supply chain everywhere. Because this, again, Eric said, affects everybody. This is not somehow, I've got a line on the Cisco equipment. Well, turn a side eye to that if that's the case, because something might not be up and up if that's the case. But it's just difficult because needs are needs, right? So you have to balance that. And, certain vendors might have, it all depends on demand for a product, too. If it's a niche product, you might be better off. Mainline product, you probably wait in line. It's difficult to find that balance because what your company needs is usually what it needs. But at the same time, I think the nice part about what we do at IVOXY is we are not just bulk product. We are not bulk product movers at all. Not just. And we're not bulk product movers. We're not, hey, we just sold $1 million. Dust my hands off. Good. We're moved $1 million. I don't care if it's shoelaces. That's not our approach whatsoever. And like again, to pick on Cisco just because they're a great example with a huge product tree.
Yeah, they do.
You need a lot of expertise to suss out exactly exactly what do you want. Okay, well now you've got these options and these might be the better way to go. It's very possible that there might be an alternative product option, and this applies to all kinds of our product solutions. And I think we're well versed to say, no, what you really need, you could also have this option. It might be the same cost, might be a little bit more, might be a little bit less, but it satisfies your needs, and you can get it here 3 months earlier. We're plugged into all of that too. So it's been an interesting exercise for our consulting team because we've had to look and use how quick can I get it as a factor where before that just wasn't something I cared to worry about, right?
That does kind of just change the requirement tree, right? How long it is a requirement tree.
And everybody is affected by this. The big companies, the small companies. There's availability and the time to manufacture, whether it be the behemoth Cisco or a tiny little company that's just a startup. They're all affected in one way or the other by global supply chain. One nice thing about global supply chain is software. So if there's a way you can solve a problem with software instead of hardware, then consider that now. There are immutable things that you still need. Spinning disk or some sort of media to store your equipment on. You still need a server. You still need cables running in and out of your building. But if there's anything that you can do in software, now's the time to consider doing that.
That's absolutely one of the ones that I find when I'm having conversations with customers these days is, like we were talking about, changing the requirements. I need to accomplish X, Y, and Z. How quickly I can get this product is now a legitimate requirement, or maybe not now, but a more legitimate requirement. And oftentimes, like you just said, that's one of those ones where I'll say, how about we do a virtual whatever? How about we do a software-defined thing? or whatever and swap that out for something that we can run in code. So I don't have to wait for a box to get from point A to point B. I can just deploy a software solution and solve that for a customer.
Yeah, and that sets us apart too, is that we're solutions designers ultimately, and that solution is usually not just here's a product, there it is, that fixes your problem, end of story. It involves a project plan or some creative designing to make the most of the resources that either you already have or you'll be procuring, or both. And that's where I think we have a vested interest in making sure our customers are happy. And that's leveraging our talent and skill and experience to make do with what you have first and foremost. If the product is not the silver bullet, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think there's potentially a little bit of room for some benefit to come out of this, knowing that some of this equipment is going to take however long to show up and arrive. It kind of facilitates the ability to have some more planning, have some more preparation, do some more work up front to get a design and a better solution, to get a bunch of prep work done up front for when this equipment finally happens. So I think that eventually we're going to be, doing all this prep work and then just cranking projects out.
And another thing that comes to mind in that time that might be, I don't want to say free time, right? Everybody's super busy with different things now. You've just shifted your focus. But one of the things that we've really been bearing down very, very intently on here in recent couple of years would be security, obviously, at IVOXY. And we've always historically done things like workshops where we'll kind of powwow and whiteboard and talk about, plans on a high level and conceptually what would you do. Well, one of the things we've been doing recently are basically ransomware exercise assessments, where we can sit down and talk and say, okay, the bomb goes off today. What do we do? And I think we've seen some customers, unfortunately, run through the scenario, and it's such a shock that there is a lag in actually getting the wheels turning on the recovery plan. And that's what we can help with, because one, we have an objective viewpoint, right? We know what the right moves are in terms of the main pillars that need to come up. We traditionally have a good familiarity with our customers' environments, and we know where the bodies are buried a lot of times, and we know where to look for things. And ultimately we can have a level head and sit down in a non-emergency scenario and say, okay, here, and end up with a documented plan to say, here's who you call, here's the first thing you do, here's the second thing you do, here's the third thing you do. And that will keep that RTO, that recovery time, down to as close to zero as possible, rather than losing 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 days of business, because the first 2 days were just a complete fiasco of who do I call, and start calling everybody. You've got limited bandwidth, and we can not only help plan that out, but we can be called in to help should it happen, God forbid, also.
Yeah, we're seeing so much activity with security, with ransomware and malware, and I think part of it is the growth of AI, that these bad actors can set machines up and have them go do stuff automatically, so it takes less human labor to go and try to hack into people's systems, whether it be email or file servers, or attack printers that are still hanging on the network.
Combined with the fact that from a business point of view, from where we sit in the environment, being the quote-unquote good guys, we're always playing catch-up to whatever bad actors are doing, right?
Add that with the human factor of human beings are trusting. They're trusting. Judy in accounting, wonderful human being, she doesn't know not to click on that email because it looks like it comes from her manager. Click on this, or send me this credit card information, or wire me this money. It's happening rampantly, and all of us need to be aware of it. And the smartness of artificial intelligence, the ease of using those tools, and how much as humans we trust things that we see in email or on the internet. It's a perfect storm.
And I think it goes back to our roots at IVOXY, in that day one, we didn't sell a single product. Is that right, Eric? I mean, we were training. and knowledge transfer on this whole virtualization thing. And it kind of organically grew up from there. Hey, a proper high availability cluster needs storage, and it needs compute, and it needs switches. And then the solutions that go into those products, or that those products enable, is where we've really built on top of that foundation and grown our strength. Now is the time to, if you can't procure product, let's look at what processes can be improved. Let's improve security. Let's improve the infrastructure. That might not be throwing a piece of hardware at it, but that doesn't mean your work's done because you throw a piece of hardware at it too. So I think it's a good time to do, to examine that as well.
If we've got to wait, let's do some of that documentation. Yeah.
Absolutely. So what do you see? Look into your crystal ball, Mr. Watson, and we're not going to put you on CNBC or C-SPAN or anything like that, but do you have do you see a way out? Do you see this letting up anytime soon?
The global supply chain issues?
I guess, yeah.
They have to, but it's going to take a while. It's going to take a while. The manufacturing in China is slowed, and part of that is just politics in China. I'm doing a lot of reading about this. The Chinese government is holding the price of electricity fixed. However, the price of coal is shooting up. So some of these power producing plants are shutting down because they're feigning inoperability because they can't run at a loss. And so less electricity means less ability for the chip manufacturing plants to actually make the chips, right? And so when there's a vacuum or a latent demand, then this global economic machine, this global economic organism will move to correct, but it's going to take a while. You can't build a chip manufacturing plant in Denver overnight. It'll take a while.
Like you said, even when the fix is in, even when the fix is in, there's still a backlog of problems that needs to, chip away at.
Yeah, because this problem started when the pandemic started a year and a half ago.
And we didn't feel it immediately for a while, which is funny. So it's going to take a similar probably upswing to get out of it, even after it's quote unquote fixed. Yeah.
Ripples.
Well, Mr. Watson, I got to say, this has been super enjoyable. I'm really glad to finally have you on, and I hope it's not another 70 before we can get you on again.
Oh, yeah, let's do this again. This was fun.
With a happier topic, though, right? We want, like, supply chain celebration as the topic, not issues or crisis.
Let's think of a fun one. Yeah, Matt, appreciate it. Let's absolutely do this again.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Well, Mr. Coz, it's good to be back on the regular with you.
Thank you. Take a little bit of the workload, yeah.
Yep, and I'm going to have another coffee and go say hello to, as Jamie Tart would put it, my sexy little baby. For you Ted Lasso fans out there, Mr. Watson, watch Ted Lasso. Watch it. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening to Data Center Therapy. We'll catch you next time.